The hour being after 6 o'clock, I'd like to call the Tuesday, February 1st, 2022, Walpole School Building Committee meeting to order. The first order of business is to acknowledge the rules of public participation. On June 16th, 2021, Governor Baker signed into law an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. This act includes an extension until April 1st, 2022 of the remote meeting provisions of his March 12, 2020 executive order, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. Citizens with a question or comment can email mmortali@walpole.k12.ma.us or middleschoolproject@walpole.k12.ma.us. Our next order of business is approval of meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from January 18th, 2022?
So moved.
I have a motion from Ms. Gallivan. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, I have a second for Mr. Fisher. Let me poll the committee. Dr. Goff,
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton,
Yes.
Mr. Hahn,
Yes.
Mr. Jack Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Frisha,
Yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Senek.
Abstain.
Very good. Ms. Gallivan,
Yes.
Ms. Santiago Taylor. Thank you. And Mr. Jeffrey Fisher.
Yes.
Did I miss anybody?
Jen Giositz,
Oh, I'm
yes.
sorry, Jen Giositz votes yes. Thank you. It is a vote. So with that, I'll turn it over to Brian and Chin from Compass Project Management.
Brian, will
Thanks, Mark.
you be sharing?
Yeah, I can share. I got it.
Okay,
We have a quick update for tonight, and we really want to get it over to TAP A's team. They have a full team here tonight with a pretty good design update. We already did the minutes, and the only other administrative item really with an update is where we are with the CM at risk procurement process. So since last time we met, the RFQ was drafted, reviewed, issued, currently out on the street. We're expecting the statement of qualifications, or SOQs. They're due back next week from interested CM firms. We checked today. I think we have a dozen firms that have pulled it, give or take. The usual cast of firms that we've seen on some of our recent projects. So we have a really good pool of people that are interested. The first meeting of the pre-qual / selection committee, we have a kickoff meeting scheduled for tomorrow. Where we'll kind of go through high level just so everyone understands the process and the upcoming schedule. And then we'll start to nail down some definitive dates. These are the current dates that were listed in the RFQ as far as what's happening through the month of February and then into March. The goal is by early March to be able to shortlist the firms that respond from, hopefully 9 or 12 down to 3 or 4. After which we will ask those 3 or 4 to issue a proposal. We'll have a request for proposal, and that information will come back in 2 pieces from those firms. There will be a technical piece, basically their construction experience, how they approach the project, how they approach pre-construction, their team, resumes, things of all that nature. And then there'll be a financial piece, which will be their pre-construction fees, their estimated general condition costs and things of that nature based on the information that we provide in that request for proposal. We'll evaluate those. There will also be interviews associated with those proposals of the handful of farms that we shortlist. And then we're teeing those interviews up for possibly the first week of April. So we'll nail down those dates as we move through the process, but that is the tentative timeline right now. And the goal would be to have a firm on board at some point mid-April. Any questions on that? But that is moving along and a lot of interest, which is great. And that's really about it. We'll get through TAP A's presentation, and we'll also talk about logistics with this committee as far as meeting dates. I think we only have one other meeting right now scheduled for February. And then we have a handful of meetings in March as we get close to the end of design development stage and get ready to do the design development submission to the MSBA. There will be an estimate that'll go out at the end of an estimate package that'll go out at the end of this month. We'll have that cost back in March, and we'll have a lot to talk about mid-March. But If there aren't any questions for us, things are going along well. We'll turn it over to TAP A and they'll give you more of an update on how the design's going.
Thanks, Brian.
Good?
So we're going to give a brief overview of where we're at
Yep.
with the design of the exterior of the building and also the interiors. So I've got myself from TAP A, who's Matt Barnhart, and Wendy is also here from our team, who is the Director of Interior Design. And Chris is here listening in as well. So we will start in on the presentation with the exteriors first. So first, we're going to give a brief overview of kind of the materials and construction of the exterior, so everyone understands what they're looking at and what's being explained. The first exterior item is we have utility brick. That's the veneer on the outside of the building. We've got utility brick and also CMU veneer. Utility brick is basically a larger than your typical size brick. It is approximately 4 inches by 12 inches for the overall. Your average and 2 courses equals 8 inches in height, compared to your typical brick, your standard brick, which is 3 inches, or 3 courses equals 8 inches. So this is a slightly bigger brick than your typical brick, and it works better with the scale of the building typically, and it's also a better cost savings option than your typical size brick. Next,
Hey, Matt,
we'll get.
before we get going, I just want to preface this conversation tonight is this, we reviewed a lot of this with the working group this week. And the goal for tonight is just to get everyone up to speed with an understanding of the design intent from TAP A as far as the types of materials that are being proposed. Again, this is all in line with what we've seen during schematic design, but now we get to see some more detailed photographs and a more detailed layout of where these materials are being proposed for on the building and why. And then also we talk about interior materials when we get to Wendy. So no decisions tonight. This is really getting everyone up to speed, getting a chance to digest it, and then come back at the next meeting in February, either responding to comments or questions with the decision point of moving on with everyone's in agreement with where they're moving in the right direction or if any changes need to be made.
And on that same note, the colors that you're seeing here are kind of just the intent of the design materials. We have not selected any of the final colors or palettes yet. So that'll be part of the ongoing conversation as we move along in design. Back down to CMU veneer. This is the other exterior, one of the other materials we have on the exterior of the building. It's a CMU block. Again, you'll see this as we go along and show the exterior elevations and perspectives. We have this along kind of the back of the building that you don't see much of. That's covered by the wooded area. Again, the dimensions here are almost 8 inches overall by 16 inches. And we'll have some sort of surface pattern. We'll probably go with a ground face brick, so it has a little bit of texture to it. Again, as you're looking at what we're showing you here, this little box kind of represents what you will see throughout the presentation for the colors, for the interior, for the exterior elevations, and also the exterior perspectives. Moving. Go ahead.
Is there a significant difference? Is there a significant difference in the cost between the utility brick and the CMU block?
There is a cost savings with the CMU, yes. I don't have them off the top of my head, but there is a cost savings. We don't have that into our estimate yet.
Would you, when you go ahead and do that, would you make sure that you identify what the difference in price would be?
Will do. Moving on, we have composite metal panel. Again, these are our metal panels. They can come in different shapes and sizes and patterns. This is kind of just your standard composite metal panel here. You can see here these are probably 2x4 panels. They've got a closed joint rain screen system. And again, this is the color that is represented in the presentation as we go along. Next, we move on to polycarbonate panels. So these are translucent panels. We use these in the gym, as you'll see, as we move along in the presentation, and also along the entry canopy. This allows a lot of light into the gymnasium. It's filtered light, and it works very well within the space. It has a metal aluminum frame, which wraps around, and the panels are typically about 2 feet wide, as you can see in the seams here. And then depending on the height spans, they can vary in size and height. The thickness of the panels depends, again, on the height that we need and the wind loads in the building. Moving on, we've got aluminum windows throughout the building. You can see some examples here from some of this presentation. Will have glazing within. Moving on, we've got curtain wall as well. This is aluminum frame curtain wall system. Again, the colors can vary for the finish on that. And then we have glazing inside. Moving on, kind of up to here and down here, We have spandrel panels, spandrel glass. You can see it down here in this image, and then this is kind of a close-up up here of the different images. So these are opaque glass, and typically these are used at the floor levels or at ceilings to hide the mechanical units, the floors, and all the other equipment that you may not want to see through your typical transparent glass. And finally, we have some sunshades in this building. We have this on the south facade. Again, these go above the windows or they attach to the curtain wall system, depending on where you're at in the building. And these help prevent solar glare into the spaces on the south side. Any questions before we move on from the materials? Okay, to orient everybody on the building, on each plan that you see in elevation, we have a key plan down here. Plan north is straight up on the page. To the right is east, which is Washington Street. To the left is west, which is East Street. Again, north is up and south is down. So I'll walk you through the overall building elevations here, kind of describing where the materials are at that we just looked at. And as we go through, there'll be enlarged images of these and also some more examples of photography from other projects that we have done. We'll start down at the west elevation. This is the front facade. Looking here, looking back this direction. The main entry is in the middle of the building right here. We've got a polycarbonate and steel entry canopy. We've got aluminum building signage that says main entry above there. I can zoom in a bit so you guys can see some of this. We've got more building signage here with the Walpole Middle School. The materials at the main entry, we have curtain wall and spandrel glass, aluminum column enclosures covering the structure, and then metal panels up above. As we zoom out here to the left, we have the admin suite. We've got above that, the media center and guidance suite above that. This is all the utility brick in this area with their standard aluminum windows. We've got curtain wall or storefront down here for entry with glazing it. And we've got our typical metal roof edge everywhere all along the edge of the roof of the building. To the left over here, we have this big block. So this is the gym up above. Carved back in underneath here, we've got the loading dock. This is a stair down from the gym. Again, the material here is we've got the utility brick, curtain wall with glazing, composite metal panel above. Down here, you have the utility brick again, basically where we carve back into the building for the loading dock. So there's a canopy and overhang. We have a darker color brick back in that area to kind of help that area fade away. Up above, we have polycarb that allows light into the gymnasium. A lot of times you won't even need to have the lights on inside of that space with all the natural light that comes in and is diffused really nicely. Working our way over here, we've got the classroom wing. Again, this wing is all utility brick. We've got some metal panel kind of bump outs at each classroom, metal panel at the stair along with curtain wall or doors for egress out. I'll explain this more later as we go along. These are pole banners. We have these mounted a couple areas across the building where you can display the school's name. You could put up events or other things that the school may want to display and kind of give a pop of color to the building. As we work our way down, we've got the same sort of materials. We're still showing equipment screens up here for now. We're going to carry them in the estimate until we get confirmation that they are required or not required for acoustical requirements for the surrounding community. And then we'll also be taking views as we continue to model the views coming into the site to see if any of these units will be visible from the street or down below. And then we can have a conversation of if we want to keep these or if we want to eliminate them per Donnie's request and maintenance reasons. Moving up to the east elevation. And again, the colors we have here are just kind of to delineate the different materials. We're looking at kind of, warm, earthy colors. We changed the colors a bit from their previous presentation to kind of give them a brighter and warmer look. And we will, again, the next presentation, we will show more images of the actual brick colors and the CMU colors that we're going to be discussing further at the next presentation. So the east elevation, and this is the elevation on Washington Street side. So anywhere that's kind of tucked behind the trees as you're coming into the building, we have all of this as the CMU veneer. This is the kind of the main entry in the middle. We kept that as utility brick on either side with the curtain wall. And again, the aluminum column enclosures. As we come back over here, we've got the chorus and art classrooms above. We've got curtain wall letting natural light into that building, those spaces. There's also curtain wall on these sides, on the interior side here, going full height down the ground, so we get a lot of natural light into those spaces. The CMU veneer continues all the way down the classroom wing to this portion. Again, we have the same CMU veneer, aluminum windows, the equipment screen up above, hiding the rooftop equipment. And then as the building turns to be more visible coming in the main entry drive, we switch back to the utility brick. We've got more building signage here with the school name here. We've got our stair going up to the roof, which is metal panel, along with curtain wall, utility brick. And then as you're working your way down, this is the tech classroom kind of sticking out at the end of the building, which is more metal panel. We also have some more building signage there for the school. Moving on to the south elevation, which is the classroom wing down here. This is looking back up. This is the typical classroom wing. Again, the main veneer on the building is utility brick. In this area, we've got the standard aluminum windows. On the south side, we have the solar shades that we talked about previously. Again, that's to help shade and eliminate glare coming into these spaces. This is the stairway at both ends of the building. We've got the utility brick down low, the metal panel up high. And this is the bump out that you saw previously in the classroom space. This is all metal panel kind of going vertically. And then this is curtain wall, infill in between. You got your regular typical glass here, and then we've got spandrel glass in between, kind of so you don't see the ceilings and mechanical equipment and the floor transitions to above. This whole side is mirrored to this other side, so it's essentially the same layout. And in the center, this is the tech classroom. All 3 floors, we've got the tech classrooms working our way up. Again, we've got metal panel working up vertically in these vertical bands, and then also wrapping across the top. And then we have our curtain wall and glazing wrapping all the way up through with our solar shades at all 3 levels to help prevent glare. Moving up to the north elevation, this is this one here looking back down. Again, the woods would be wrapping around the building up here. The CMU veneer continues around from the auditorium to this back side. This is the chorus band classroom here. That's kind of the stopping spot for the CMU veneer. As you turn the corner down here, this then transitions back to the standard utility brick. This is our cafeteria space in here. We have a lot of curtain wall to let a lot of light into that space. So when you're walking down the corridor, you'll be looking out into the patio space out here and letting a lot of natural light into that space. Utility brick continues all the way along this facade. This is our egress stair here coming down from the gym. This is the gym coming all the way down here on the 2nd floor with kitchen and back of house below it. And then back to the loading dock here with the stair on the very end of the building for the second means of egress out of the gym. Again, we've got the polycarbonate panel wrapping all 3 sides of the gym. Again, the equipment screens up top hiding rooftop equipment. And these are our 2 skylights that we have on the building. We've got one which goes into the alt PE space on the 2nd floor. And this one allows more light into the cafeteria to bring in natural light into that space. Now we'll start sharing some of the 3D views of the building. This is kind of looking down here, this is kind of a bird's eye view from above, looking at the corner of the classroom wing down here. Again, this is the same elevation that we've just looked at. This is the south elevation. You can see how the utility brick wraps around the building. We've got the metal panel and curtain wall on the stair. Again, at the classroom bump out here, at the technology classrooms. And then again, it's mirrored to the other side. This is our one stair that goes up to the roof from this side of the building for roof access. We've got our equipment screens that we talked about previously. And then this is kind of the transition where you can see The utility brick wraps around this portion of the building. And then once you get to the west elevation here is where we make the transition to the CMU veneer. The sunscreens, I think of anything I didn't talk about here. We've got sunscreens again above all of the large window openings on the south. Also at the curtain wall, into the classroom bump outs, and also the tech classrooms. This is an enlarged bay looking at the typical classroom wing. Here you can see our aluminum windows. We've got a precast sill at all of the windows. Again, we've got up here the sunshades above all the large windows. We've got the typical running bond pattern. We got another precast band kind of separating the first floor from the second floor. We've got our metal roof edge. And then as you can see beyond, we kind of got the metal panel of the stair and the roof screens up above. Typical metal roof edge capping the building. On the right here, you can kind of see some representation of the brick and the windows and kind of the color scheme that we're kind of looking into. These are images from Lunenburg Middle High School. You can see the utility brick wrapping the building here. There's some more with a textured pattern. Options that we have for the building to give, some more character and texture to the building exterior. So it's just not a straight plain facade. We've got metal panel canopy here wrapping up. We've got your metal roof edge. You can see some curtain wall and spandrel glass back here. Move on to the next slide. This is the enlarged east elevation of the classroom wing where we have the CMU veneer. We've got the same sort of windows, aluminum windows with the smaller punch windows. We'll have the brick precast sill. We've got the precast band separating the first and second floor. And then the same with the metal roof edge. And you can kind of start seeing the running bond pattern that we have for the CMU. This is another image of one of our projects. Again, we've got the CMU veneer here. We've got the curtain wall. As you can see, it comes in you can get many different colors or paint colors for the actual aluminum. You've got your spandrel panel up here, so you cannot see the ceiling and mechanical ductwork up above. And again, these are just representations of other projects that we use these materials on, and we'll be presenting more of a palette of what we're looking at in the next presentation to you guys. This is a perspective of the south elevation, kind of looking from the other corner of the classroom wing down here at the corner, back towards the main entry and the gym. We'll start down here. This is the gym. We've got the stair coming down from the gym. We've got the polycarb wrapping the top of the gym, allowing natural light all the way in. We've got a couple punched openings into the back of house spaces for the janitors. Again, we've got more of these pole banners mounted to the side of the gym. This is what we're calling the community entry. We've got some more building signage there. That would be one of the entries for after hours use. Back to guidance up here in admin. We've got a curtain wall, letting a lot of natural light into the media center up above. And we've got the steel and polycarbonate entry canopy that leads you back to the main entry of the building. Again, we've got building signage tucked in up there to help you into that space. And then we've got the utility brick kind of wrapping around through the rest of the classroom wing, metal panel and curtain wall at each of the stairways. Again, we got the pole banners mounted on the side here. Typical metal roof edge wrapping around the entire building with the roof screens wrapping all of the units on the roof. Back here to the south classroom wing. Again, all the south facades, we have the sunshades to help prevent the glare. Up here on the left-hand side, you can see another image from one of our projects. This is showing the polycarbonate. At night, it gives a nice glow out from the building. We've got a CMU veneer down here, and then some more brick with aluminum windows next to that. This is another example of brick and the patterns and textures that you can add to the building to give some more character. And doing something, we got blank would be good banding texture into that wall to give it some more character to that facade. Can everyone hear me okay? It says I have unstable connection.
Yeah, you were good except for a few words just
Okay.
now.
Continuing on, this is the west elevation perspective, kind of looking back at the main entry. Again, this is the community entry here. You can see we got some signage tucked in on top of that canopy. This is the polycarbonate we just talked about, wrapping the gym, utility brick wrapping all the way around. We've got the building signage, curtain wall into the media center. Again, the same polycarbonate and steel entry canopy. This is the image kind of representing the design intent that we're looking at. This is the polycarbonate. Again, it'll be the same translucent panels that we have kind of up here on the gym, allowing filtered light to come through. And then we'd have the steel supporting that up above. Back to the classroom wing here. We got similar windows, aluminum windows on the north, but we have more of them since it's the north facade. We're trying to get more natural light into that space. And they have no solar shades on that north since there's no glare coming from that direction. Again, we've got another representation of a project up here. This is in Wakefield. Again, showing this is one of the stairways, having the curtain wall wrapping it around there. We've got, again, more masonry with banding and textures, metal panel wrapping around here, more of your typical red brick with aluminum windows and more curtain wall tucked in back here. This is an axon from the northwest, kind of up here, bird's eye view looking down from the gymnasium. Again, you can see the polycarbonate wrapping all around, utility brick wrapping all around to this corner. This is the transition that we make at the chorus band, where we go back to the CMU veneer. That veneer wraps all the way around this facade, back until the classroom wing to this corner right here. Again, this is all the same kind of materials that we talked about earlier. We've got the entry canopy leading you into the main entry, metal panel, utility brick, curtain wall. And this is the same classroom wing that we discussed earlier with all the same materials. Again, another example of one of our projects. We've got the metal panel up here. This is also a cafeteria space. We've got the curtain wall letting a lot of natural light from above and also below into that cafeteria. You can see more of the curtain wall here. Here's another example of the spandrel glass. You can get your spandrel in numerous colors of the rainbow to fit, our design intent. This one, we kind of had a tealish green to match what was on the existing building that we added onto. We've got the aluminum building signage mounted to the front of the metal panel here. And then our typical metal roof edge wrapping the top of the building. This is an enlarged elevation looking at the admin. Guidance is over here above it, and this is into the media center. Again, a lot of natural light on this facade, allowing light into the media center. We've got metal panel wrapping up above, and then we've got more of the building signage for the Walpole Middle School mounted to the brick here. Typical precast sills, typical aluminum windows. Up here, we have another example of, this is an elementary school. This is Winchester, Vincent Owen Elementary School. Again, this is a media center where we have curtain wall, different patterns. You can work with the mullions, spandrel glass. This is actually metal panel here as well, but we have a wood look to that metal panel, both above and below. The metal panel in this building, we have it as white, along with a white metal roof edge. This is the final enlarged elevation we have. This is looking at the gym. Again, we provided a few aluminum windows into the back of house for the janitors' maintenance closet, not closets, but their offices. We've got the utility brick wrapping up with the precast band separating the first and second floor. This is the pole banner. This is an example of the pole banners and the signage that could be put on there. Again, you can make anything that you want on that. It can be the name of the school, the mascot. You can advertise for upcoming art shows and stuff like that. And this is the polycarbonate panels, typical metal roof edge. Again, we've got a few more examples from some of our projects. This is the gymnasium back at Winchester, Vincent Owen. Those are the translucent panels up above, metal panel wrapping above here, metal panel wrapping here. This is actually metal panel down below with the wood look again. Back to your brick, utility brick, which is red here, your end curtain wall. We've got one final project down here, which is a Goodyear. Again, we just wanted to show the polycarbonate. Again, it's translucent. It allows you to see through. You'll see the structure kind of reading through as the sun goes down and the lights are on the building. So you'll actually be able to see the structure coming through the building. Again, we've got some metal panel up above here with your standard roof edge and curtain wall here. Any questions before we move on to the interiors?
Matt, just one thing.
Sure.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, just one thing. In many places, or I shouldn't say many places, but at least several places, you had those metal panels going all the way down to the ground level. Has your experience been that they don't get dented?
We try to typically keep them up a little bit so that, you know, there's not balls and stuff hitting them, but they can take some damage, but not a ton of abuse. So we try to hold them up off of the ground.
Okay, that's just one. I mean, that could be a long-term maintenance issue or an appearance issue. That's all.
Thank you. We'll take a look at that.
Thank you.
Matt, I have a few questions, just quick ones. The access from the outside, when you say community access, that gets you to cafeteria, gym, and auditorium, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so
And-
that is this entrance right here. So that is entering right between, you know, your cafeteria is here, your auditorium is here, and then your admin suite is here, and then the main entry is right here.
Okay, good. And what about safety from the outside? Like, do you have plans for barriers or something so that, you know, a truck couldn't drive right up to the front door, or how do you handle that?
Yeah, landscape is looking at that along with our security consultant. Again, we'll have curbing all around here. They're looking at, you know, having a higher than typical curb to help eliminate that. We've got bollards as you go around the building as well. And then over here in the front, there's a speed table as well to help slow down traffic as they're going across the front of the building.
Thanks.
We have an upcoming security meeting to kind of get more into the details of, you know, the school policies and the lockdown, but the exterior we started to discuss previously at some of the other meetings.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Otherwise, any other questions? If not, I'll turn it over to Wendy to present the interiors.
Matt, can you can you go to the slides that have the materials on them, and then we'll come back to the floor plans? All right, so first I'm just going to talk about the different materials that go on the inside of the building, and then we can go back to those floor plans and take a closer look at where they all go. So just a little bit of broad information, sort of overview of what these materials are. So first of all, we're going to look at the flooring, and again, a few different materials. The first material we are looking at here is quartz tile. And if you're familiar with BCT, it's very similar to BCT, but the big difference here is that it is made with quartz instead of limestone. So it can withstand more impact and heavier loads. The other nice thing about this product is that it can come in larger sizes. So we have the option of doing the standard 12 by 12, which is what we've seen in the past for a regular 12-inch by 12-inch BCT floor that we've seen get used in several schools, but this one can go up to 24 by 24, and that allows for fewer seams in the floor. But this product also comes in many colors, so it'll still allow us to create some nice patterns and some interesting things throughout the school. It'll allow us to identify either the classroom wings by color or the floors by color. So quartz tile is what we'll be looking at for most of the classrooms and the classroom corridors. We're also proposing polished concrete in public areas, namely the first floor lobby up through the cafeteria, and then also in the art classrooms and the tech classrooms. We're looking at using color concrete in the more public areas, such as the central lobby, where we have the main entrance. Just a little background on that. This top right image here shows a STEAM classroom in an elementary school that we just recently finished and opened this past summer. The concrete has a gem tone color stain on it, which is not acidic and it won't harm the concrete. And it also doesn't peel or flake. The manufacturer of this gem tone stain actually describes it as having a translucent quality. So this particular color that we see in the photo here is a little bit of an aqua blue, but in person it almost looks like ice. So it's like a Caribbean ice because it has this very subtle depth that's associated with the translucency that they talk about. So it's a pretty cool product. So we're really excited with how that has turned out in some of our other projects. In the locker rooms, we're proposing a flake epoxy floor. So this is a poured floor with these different flakes in it. And the flakes actually provide a texture. So it has a little bit more grip to it than say a tile floor would have. And also because it's a poured floor, it allows for us to build up the wall base so that it is a seamless wall base and it has a cove, which makes it easier to maintain and clean. And so we would also be using this floor in the locker rooms as well. In the kitchen areas, we will have a very, very similar product, but the binder is a little different and it will be able to withstand hotter temperatures. But the product that we are proposing for the restrooms and the locker rooms is this flake epoxy floor. And this is a floor that we've used previously as well. The gym and the ancillary gym will be a wood athletic floor with striping. The stairs will be rubber treads and then tile on the landings themselves. For wall surfaces, we're mostly looking at tile. And so just a few notes about the different types of tile and the terms porcelain versus ceramic. Porcelain is fired at a hotter temperature than ceramic, which makes it a more durable, sort of less brittle type of tile. And it also, and for that reason, it also makes it available in larger sizes. Larger sizes mean less seams and less grout. For this reason, we're also proposing that we use porcelain tile on most of the corridor walls. Called a through body porcelain tile, so that if it ever did ship, you don't see like a blaring difference underneath. But it's such a hard product that would rarely happen anyway. Ceramic tile is generally a white base tile, and then it has a color glaze on top. I don't know if anyone's looking at me. I'm kind of holding one up right now. So this is a ceramic tile, and you can see it's got the white base and then a beautiful color glaze on top. This tile is a little bit more brittle, so ceramic tile doesn't come in very large sizes for that reason. But of course, it's still very, very durable. And because it's a glazed tile, it comes in a variety of beautiful colors, including bright white, which isn't something you would ever really find in a porcelain tile anyway. So that's why we really like to combine porcelain tiles in the project, where we want to have larger format tiles. And then of course the ceramic tile where we really want to provide some color accent. You can go to the next slide, Matt. This slide really is just showing a project this is the same project that I showed with the STEAM classroom, but it does show a combination of different types of tile. So on the floor, we have a porcelain tile. Now in Walpole, we won't be putting porcelain tile on the floor, but I just want to show how we kind of mix things up. So even on the orange, Matt, if you want to point to that orange ceramic tile on the wall, and then actually just in front of it, that sort of cream color tile, that is a porcelain tile. So most of the lobby walls have that sort of creamier porcelain tile on them. And then we have those key accent areas where you can see the orange right there as a ceramic tile, where we can get that really bright focal point. So that's just an example of how we use the different types of tile. All right, we can go to the next slide. All right, so actually, Matt, can you go back to the floor plans? All right, so those are the different types of materials that we are looking at. The first floor plan here kind of shows where the different flooring materials will go. So the light blue or light blue-gray on my screen is really where all the quartz tile goes. So in the classroom wings, in the classrooms themselves, in the corridors, we have the quartz tile. And then in the tech ed classroom at the end of the main corridor, we have concrete. And the wings each have a stairwell in them. So the yellow represents the rubber that goes in the stairwell. And the sort of peachy color represents the restrooms. So that's the epoxy floor. As we move north into the central lobby there, this sort of lighter gray color that we're showing is concrete. So that goes from the central lobby up through the cafeteria. This is the polished concrete. It's a nicer finish on it. And then the back of house areas have a non-polished concrete. So just kind of your standard back of house concrete floor. And then the light green is showing the kitchen area. And that is very similar to the epoxy floor that we looked at, but just withstands the higher temperatures. The purplish color represents carpet. So we'll be looking at carpet throughout the admin areas and then also in the auditorium. So the flooring in the auditorium is carpet, except for directly under the seats in the auditorium, that is concrete. And that's relatively standard. All right, second floor, Matt. So the classroom wings are the same. The media center and the counseling suites have carpet in them. The locker rooms and the restrooms have the flake epoxy. And then the gymnasium and the ancillary gym have wood athletic floor with striping. And the third floor then is just classroom wings, so it's identical. The second and third floors have art classrooms. So the art classrooms would have the concrete, just like the tech ed classroom does, the tech classroom. Thanks, Matt. All right, looking at the classroom corridors, this is a plan of the A wing, which is the southernmost part of the building. The yellow items are the stairs. The peach color represents the restrooms again, and the gray is the tech classroom, just kind of anchoring the whole space. Up top in the elevations, we are showing tile on the walls wherever you don't have lockers or doors. Most of the walls are 12-inch by 24-inch porcelain tile up to 5 feet high. And then we have 3-inch by 12-inch ceramic tile, which is rotated vertically on the curved restroom walls. So the reason why is because we want to have a narrower tile so that we can make those walls, so that we can go along with the curve of that wall rather than making it too segmented. The perspective here shows a view into the tech classrooms. This is the view that you see when you're looking down the main corridor from the lobby. Matt, I don't know if you can just kind of like shoot on the plan. So if you're in the main lobby, this is what you see looking down towards that gray box, the tech classroom. That's what you're seeing in that image. So since it is such a focal point, we want it to be impactful and exciting. The glass walls do open up when you'd like to have more space or engage with other classes. The next slide takes us inside a general classroom. Specifically, we're looking at the classroom on the top left of the plan. So this gives you an idea of windows in the space on the exterior wall. That's the top left elevation. And yes, where Matt just pointed. The marker boards and tack boards are on both the front and back of the classrooms, and they are identical. So depending on what the teaching technology ends up being, teachers may choose to set up their classrooms how they would like. In this view, we can see the built-in cabinets, counters, and sink. So this is the wall opposite the window wall. We are showing 4 very large cabinets. They are big. They are each of them is 4 feet wide, 2 feet deep, 7 feet high. And then next to those cabinets is a counter with a sink and another cabinet and bookshelves above. So that's in all of the general classrooms.
Wendy,
Yes.
I have a quick question. And I noted there was a note on the very last page that kind of caught my attention. And when I went back and looked at this, you're showing no doors between classrooms.
That's correct.
Is that standard now? Because there's a little bit of a generation gap here, but I cannot not think of a school that I ever attended that did not have classrooms that were connected for safety reasons.
We actually had a meeting the other week with the town and also the fire department and the police. And the district's preference was, we had a presentation showing those connecting doors between all of the spaces. And the district's preference was to eliminate those doors. And the reason for that was they had concerns about the program and usable space they'd be able to have if those doors are there, since they need to be maintained then for, purposes of, as you're saying, safety to getting in and out. So the district chose to not add those doors in so they could have more usable space within the classrooms and not have to worry about maintaining those doors in an open position for egress in and out of the space. And that was reviewed and approved with the fire department, and they had no issues with us not providing those doors.
All right.
But to answer,
Matt, I
answer
think
your-
they said they preferred it. They actually supported it because it allowed that space to be closed off, and they said the open doors actually can create. So the fire department was in support, and then the police department was saw pros and cons with the door and pros and cons without the door, and so supported the district stance on eliminating doors. So in other words, there was no safety issues bought by either department. I just want to point that out because the district didn't want the doors, but we would have had the doors if the police and fire felt strongly about the safety of the doors. Yes.
And we've done this on numerous projects in different ways. It always comes down to the district's preference or the fire department and police's preference. And recently, we have not been having them in most of our projects. If that answers, hopefully that answers all of your questions.
I'm just surprised, but I'll go. That's it. That's okay.
Thank
If
you.
I could add, that seems to be the move in the last 15 plus years. And part of it is, you know, people disagree, but the safety issue, if you have to go into a lockdown, you can't lock one room, then every adjoining room's not locked either. So that's often the justification.
I have a question on that. Hello?
Yep, go ahead.
How does that do for egress? No problems with building codes?
The typical classroom, we
Yeah.
only need to have one egress out.
Okay.
When it's under a certain square footage, you only need one egress out of the space. Anywhere that we have the egress capacities, we're require 2 people or 2 ways out, we have provided the 2 doors. But your typical classrooms do not. The science classrooms, since they are 1,200 square feet, they do require 2 egresses, and we've got a door up here to the north and another door out to the south.
Okay, the question, do these doors, do they all come with the automatic open if there's a fire or something?
Typically, the normal classroom doors do not have hold opens. They typically are automatically closed in a closed position.
You don't have panic devices on them then, correct?
Not on those. We have them on, like the doors to the stairs. A lot of times we may have them on hold opens. They will be tied to the fire alarm. So they automatically close when the fire alarm goes off, and they do have panic devices on them.
Okay, and I assume they can only be locked from the inside?
For the classrooms or the
Yeah.
stairway doors?
Classroom.
We are having a discussion on the security this week for how the district wants to proceed with the classroom doors and hardware.
Well, my issue with that is I don't think you want to have the lock on the outside because someone come along and lock them in.
Correct. Typically, they either are locked from the interior side and they fall automatically in the lock position.
Okay,
So that way, if there is an emergency situation, a student or the teacher can literally just walk up and close the door and you can get into your lockdown procedure. There's also the thinking of having a key and having the teacher
Matt,
lock. Yep.
Matt, can I interrupt? I think this type of lock set, it's always, you can always open the door from the inside, no matter what condition,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So no matter what you do from the outside, if you were to say, using a key to lock the door from the outside, it always allows the occupant from the inside to open the door.
Free egress. Yep.
Right.
Thank you, Jim.
Can I ask a quick question about the windows? I'm having a hard time conceptualizing the windows in classrooms based on the exterior views.
Mhm.
Does this exterior wall that we're seeing right now reflect the actual window setup for this building?
Yes, these are the windows on the north facade. So there's more windows on the north to allow more light since it's the north facade. The other windows that you see down here is kind of the typical what you saw on the south facade, where we've got a bay of 3 and then a smaller window here with the sunshades on top of them.
Okay.
So all the windows on this north side look like this classroom here. And then we've got the same kind of bump out here with the curtain wall that we had on the south facade. And then this whole south facade is what you saw in their renderings that have, single punched window and then the larger ganged aluminum windows with the sunshades above them.
Yeah, I think the single punch window is one I'm having a hard time conceptualizing, but I'm sure that I'll see a picture of it at some point. Thank you.
You're welcome. Turn it back over to you, Wendy.
So this slide shows our approach to tile in the restrooms. We'd like to use a larger tile on the wet walls, or the walls that have sinks, urinals, and toilets on them. And that on this image is represented with the blue line to show you which walls we're talking about. For color accent and visual interest, and again, to bend around that curved wall, we'd like to use the 3 by 12-inch ceramic tile, which is represented with the green line in the schematic. So we would use this approach for most restrooms in the project. The lower image here on the right, lower right, is a project we have under construction currently, which utilizes a similar approach where there's a larger format tile on the wet wall and then a smaller format on the other walls. Other enclosed areas in the project that would have tile on the walls include the kitchen and the locker rooms. Otherwise, tile on the wall is essentially for corridors and the cafeteria. All right, next slide, Matt. So the next slide shows the central lobby and the ideas we have for the main stair. Because this stair is such a focal point and visible from the exterior, we'd like for this ribbon of color to stand out. And so we're showing this blue oval of color on the floor that kind of mimics the opening above. The idea is that this color will wind up the stringer of the stair, that's the side of the stair right there, up to the second floor, and then from the second floor up to the third floor as well. So we think this can be a great landmark in the school, and so we're looking to treat it as such with color and lighting, materials, and form. And there is an area under the stair that is also a great meeting spot. So this would be sort of a sitting area constructed out of maple wood. And so the image that we see right here in the inspirational images is a similar concept of another project that we completed with the wood seating element. Again, it's not quite the same situation, but it gives you an idea of how we can take advantage of those areas underneath the stair. Okay, the cafeteria. As mentioned, the flooring in this space is concrete. The walls are tile. And we're also showing some wall graphics. You can kind of see it in that elevation on the top right there. But the idea is that above the wall, above the tile on this wall, we would have some wall graphics. And we typically design these graphics custom in-house with our graphic designer. It's a great opportunity for school pride, brand identity, something inspirational, all of the above. So that's what we're looking at putting on this wall. And again, this is the wall with the servery. So where students go in and get their lunches. The wall opposite the servery has a stair that goes up to the second floor. You can kind of see that in plan right there. And then also it's shown in elevation. Here we're showing ceramic tile on that wall, of course, to protect the wall from hands as people go up and down, but also for a splash of color, because this wall becomes a major focal point as visitors enter through that community entrance. And that's where visitors will come in to go to the auditorium and upstairs to the gym. So it creates this great opportunity for a focal point. So we really want to keep that in mind for finishes in that area. The next slide is the auditorium. And as mentioned, we have carpet on the floor and concrete under the seats. The front of the auditorium shows a drywall proscenium around the stage opening, which will be painted a contrasting color, much like we did in this auditorium in Southbridge on the lower right. It's one of our projects. The sidewalls will be a combination of fabric wrapped panels in varying widths with integrated lighting elements and wood paneling below where hands can touch and reach. We're currently working on that in more detail with our acoustics consultant, but this is the direction we're looking at for the auditorium. The next slide is the gymnasium, and I think this is our last slide. We are showing the approach to the gym, looking at bleachers on one side of the gym and a series of wall pads covering the rest of the walls. There are some locations where we have marker boards for instruction, and then we have overhead doors that open up into the ancillary gym. And then the rendering on the lower left, I think also does a nice job of showing the polycarbonate panels and how they really allow the light to permeate that space. So that is our approach to the materials for the interior of the building. Any questions I can answer?
I popped a question. This is Jen about the epoxy, the flake epoxy.
Mhm.
Yeah, Jenny, you put in the chat just about the durability of it over time.
Can you say that again?
I think Jen put it in the chat during the presentation, just the durability of the flake epoxy over time.
Oh, it's an extremely durable product. It's meant for industrial purposes. And I can get more information to you on the warranty of the product and also other projects for references.
So how does that compare to maybe what folks might have at home in their garage?
If they have a port epoxy floor in the garage, then it would be very similar. Yes, it does get used in. And again,
Wendy, have you guys used this product in other school projects, and how like do you have, like, for instance, do you have a school that has been in use for 5-10 years, and then we can get the names of the school so the people can put a phone call to check on the
yes,
how it holds up?
yes, I will look into getting references for you.
Would that
Yeah, we-
satisfy the committee? The concern on the durability, if we get the projects that has similar product that has been in use for a good 5-10 years, and then we can then talk to their maintenance people to see how well the material holds up.
Brian,
Yeah, Jack.
is the flake epoxy what was used at the fire station on the floor?
Yeah, that was an epoxy floor. I'm not sure if it was flake epoxy, but it was a built up epoxy floor. It did have different color to it, but it didn't have the chips. I don't know if this is meant to have like the flake chips in it, Wendy, for the color. It was more just a colored epoxy that was poured in place. We
Was it
have done,
smooth or was it kind of gritty like?
it had a little texture to it, so it would be anti-slip. They added
Okay.
in whatever they have for texture pellets to it, but it wasn't the flakes.
Probably they just broadcast sand over that.
Yep.
Or to create that.
Correct. So we've done port epoxy in several school projects. Probably the biggest areas were the Norfolk Aggie used it in all of their animal spaces, as far as their kennel spaces and their veterinary spaces, just so it could easily be hosed out. So that's been in place for almost 10 years now. And we've used it in science areas. Natick used it in their aquaponics lab to kind of create that bathtub effect, and several other spaces.
Can I ask a question about the gym capacity? You mentioned that there are going to be bleachers on one side. How many people are we planning to be able to put in the bleachers?
I think we have a bleacher capacity of 300 something right now. I'd have to go back and check. We're getting an actual layout from a vendor as well. So that'll give us a better number for the actual number of seats that's available for those bleachers.
Okay, thanks.
I will follow up on that for the next meeting.
Anybody else have any questions?
Hi, Mark, I'm back on.
Okay,
So my question was going to be on the flake epoxy. We have it in our garage and it really just hasn't held up well. I'm not sure if, it was designed for extreme temperatures and if that could be part of the problem, but I just wanted to mention that.
and we just went over that, I guess, for the entire time that you were off.
Oh,
So,
okay. You can fill me in later then. Thank you.
anybody else? Ken and Brian, anything else?
Matt, do you have a couple more slides?
Yeah, we've got further slides regarding the schedule, so I can jump through that quickly. So we're on the February, where we are continuing with our review and scope and permitting for the early release package. We've been talking with our consultants and trying to get the ER scope figured out and get a permitting schedule so we know what needs to get done for the early summer work. We had the building committee meeting tonight, and on Thursday, we are having a district meeting with security to go over the hardware preferences for the town. And then after that, we will follow up with another meeting with the fire department and everybody else to get everybody on board with the district's preferences. We've got the select board coming up next Tuesday as well. Again, we're continuing on with our detailing of the documents for the DD estimate set. As you can see, the DD estimate set will be going out on the 25th of this month. We are also continuing on with kind of our second round of programming meetings. We just had a programming meeting yesterday with science, which went pretty well. They had a couple minor changes that they asked us to do for the spaces and some equipment and kitchen or refrigerator, ice maker, stuff like that, that they want added into their space. So we are adding that into our design. And then next week on the 8th, we have kind of the remainder of the programming meetings. We're meeting with art, special ed, and the technology classrooms to go over the programming again of those spaces. On the 9th, we have a IT technology meeting. Our consultant from Advance will be sitting down with the school and discussing the infrastructure of the school. We'll be talking about the tech closets, the MDF, the network system, plugs, switches, phones, and we'll also be having the first discussion of what the classroom technology will be in the space, whether it will be a marker board with a projection screen, if it'll be a digital flat screen mounted on the wall, will it be a digital flat screen on the cart? So the beginning of that discussion is happening on the 9th. And again, this is just the first round of meetings. We'll typically have a follow-up meeting where our consultant will set up a tour and you'll be able to go and kind of see the different options and have the ability to take your devices, whether it's a laptop or whatever the school is using, and test out the connectability and everything else of the different options you have to select from. We have the working group meeting. We bumped that from the 3rd to the 10th. We will be presenting the final kind of DD interior presentation. It'll kind of be what we saw tonight, but we'll have pretty images with the interior and exterior renderings, along with more of the actual materials for brick and CMU selection. Continuing on to the next.
For clarification, that would at that time would you be recommending a color scheme at that point for clarification to the committee?
I think we'll have a start, at least an idea of what our intent is for colors. But I think this will continue on as we go further into the design. So this is kind of just the first look at colors at the beginning of DD. For the most part, the colors will not have a major impact on price. Correct me if I'm wrong, Wendy, but most of the colors, as long as we own either custom colors or the color scheme that we're looking for in our spec, that the colors will not have a major price change for the estimate set.
That's right. As far as interiors go, I would also add that sometimes we just don't know what the product is going to be in the end. And also products get discontinued between the time that you spec them and the time they are to be purchased. So we can do a general color direction, but we can't get to the point where we would say this is what it's going to be, if that makes sense.
It's more the color palette that we're aiming to look to be at, and not the actual final colors, if that gives the final answer to your question. And then moving on. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Jim.
No, I was more of like trying to get make the committee understand the process and when get an idea that when the how to read the presentation, what you're presenting next time.
I had a question going back a little, couldn't get my thing to unmute. And this is probably for Donnie more than anything, is I assume Donnie's, I don't want to speak for Donnie, but all these materials, he's the guy going to be in charge of them after you guys go home, get your last payment and everything else. And is Donnie had input? Or I'll ask Donnie, have you input, or would you like to go see the stuff or to that effect on any of the interior stuff especially?
Yeah, we've been talking about it, Jack. I'm very pleased with the fact that they're using the quartz alto tile on the floors. It's very durable. We've been using that in schools now for years. And I'm also happy to see that they are putting a lot of the ceramic or tile in the hallways for durability. So,
Okay.
So far, I think they're doing a very good job with interior materials.
Okay, and my favorite question, Don, is when you did it in the library, are all the bathrooms, I assume, going tile to the ceiling?
No, they're not.
They're not? You don't have an issue with that?
I ask for it, I don't get it. I get 5 feet. That's what they offer us.
No, to me, that's something, are all the petitions hung from the ceiling, I hope? Is everything hung? All the
petition-
laps, all the sinks, all the petitions?
We typically do not hang them from the ceiling.
All right, I gotta invoke my little, because I do this stuff for my own apartments, is you gotta think about maintenance, you save $1 here, but it's gonna cost you 10 down the road. As far as now the janitorial staff comes in, it's a lot easier to mop out a floor where everything's hung than when it's on the floor. Plus, the other thing is down the road, you don't have the rust that seems to accumulate when it's been on the wet floor for all that time. And the same thing with the tiling above the 5-foot mark. It's done. It's beautiful. You never have to worry about it. So I would suggest that that's kind of looked into. Especially the hanging of it, because that's going to cost down the road extra time for janitorial stuff rather than just come. We have this wonderful floors. They're going to be all great and you can mop them up quick. But when you're going to go around all these stupid petitions, it's a problem. And the other thing, I've also found the petitions on the ground seem to get kicked or whatever. And like I said, rust. So that's something I would hope it gets looked at.
We can look at that. We've done it in the past. We've done it both ways. So if there's a preference to go with the hung, we do have to just pay for the infrastructure to mount that in the ceiling. We have to take that cost into effect. And then to go back to the tile situation, we've carried it to the ceiling in the past, but that's always the first item that gets VE'd out. So we're kind of planning ahead here. If we have extra money in the budget as we do the estimate, we can definitely put it back in, but we're currently just keeping it out to try to keep the price down.
No, I understand that, but I'm looking I'm a landlord. I look at the long term, not the short term. And that's what you're gonna look at down the road. And that's why I love having Donnie. We brought him on the police station, the fire station. He's the guy with the input. He's the one who has to do it at the end of the day. That's all. And to me, cut something else out, because you got to maintain the stuff. Now, you want to go in a pretty new bathroom where you see mop marks that didn't quite make it around a rusty stall. No, you got to think for next 20, 30 years, not like today. So if it costs you an extra 20 grand, it's going to cost you a lot more down the road. So it's all about maintaining it after the fact.
Matt, for the tile, we can easily put that, we can easily price it. And then if we can absorb it in the budget, we absorb it. But that's priced in the DD pricing, just as a note on that.
Matt, I would second what Jack's saying. I think that was really good points that he made. I deal with the custodians all the time, and that's some of the biggest challenges our staff face in trying to clean the bathroom. So if that's something we can do, within the budget, that's definitely an option I'd like to pursue. I think it's a very good suggestion. And I'd be happy to work with you guys on thoughts about that and design on that.
Thank you.
Okay, I got all that down. Okay, moving on, we'll have, like I said, the final kind of DD presentation on the 15th. We have the next working group then on the 17th. After that, we've got vacation week following that. We may have some more of the hazmat investigation going on in the school. We had some of that happen last Friday with the roof. Kind of move on. And the DD set goes out on the 25th of this month. Some other things that have been going on. The survey crew was out on the site last week. They completed the majority of their work. They said they still have to finish up the topo, kind of looking from East Street on the left-hand side. They were supposed to go out there this past Friday, but with weather and other conditions factors with COVID, they were not be able to make it out. So they are reviewing their schedule and also looking at the snow and weather outside to try to determine when they can get back out there to complete that work. As previously discussed, we had the hazmat investigation of the roof happen on last Friday, the 28th. They kind of bumped that up due to the approaching storm so they could get up there to take their samples of the roof before it was covered in snow. We just discussed earlier the communicating door meeting that we had with the district and the town, and the approval from both fire and police on not having doors connecting the spaces per the district's preference. We've been having meetings with our lead consultant, who's also our energy model consultant. We officially have the project registered for lead, and we are continuing to work on the energy model, making sure we meet all the requirements for reimbursement with lead and the 2% reimbursement, and also making sure we have the EUI rating for the building to get the reimbursement that's required. The building materials we'll have, like we discussed earlier, we'll be presenting the next one to the working group on the 10th, and then again to the building committee on the 15th, and that will have the interior and exterior renderings along with the materials and finishes that we'll be looking at for these. Moving on, we discussed we will have the district security meeting on the 3rd regarding school policies, preferences, and approach. We will have our hardware consultant along with our security consultant on that meeting. And after we kind of get the approach that the district wants, we will then have another meeting to present that to police and fire to make sure that everybody approves of what is being done. And then we also discussed the other programming meetings that have already taken place and the upcoming programming meetings for art, special education, and technology on February 8th. That is the end of our presentation. If anyone has any other questions, please let us know. Thank you.
Any questions? If not, Chin and Brian, any concluding remarks on your part?
No, that's it. That's all we have for an update. Thanks to Tap A. I think they did a nice job. I think this is right now it's going in a very cost-effective approach to both the interior and the exterior from a design perspective and from a material selection. So we'll see how that prices out, but I think we're heading in the right direction.
With that, I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion from Ms. Gaositz. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second from Mr. Senek, I believe. Was that Mr. Senek?
Yes.
Very good. Let me poll the committee. Mr. Frisha,
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton,
Yes.
Ms. Gallivan,
Yes.
Ms. Gaositz,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Conroy,
Yes.
Mr. Jeffrey Fisher,
Yep.
Mr. Jack Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Hahn,
Yes.
Mr. Senek,
Yes.
Ms. Santiago Taylor,
Yes.
and I vote yes. It is a vote. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. And listen, Tap A, folks, that was wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.